Hey everyone, so I know that I'm keeping you from that free drink, so hopefully this will be good and worth your time. Also, I'm just going with a save the best for last today, so hopefully I'll prove that to be right. So like you said, I'm Clayton Pritchard. I'm at LinkedIn now on the consumer side, but actually working with small business, so kind of a little bit of B2B and B2C. Prior to that, I was at a video conferencing company called High Five, where I started there in growth marketing and then moved into product marketing. So kind of trying to blend the best of both worlds here with this kind of session. So I know sometimes we need to do all of it. So the first, starting with what I think is maybe one of the biggest myths that we probably hear a lot from our product and eng people, which is this idea that like all we need to do is build it and people are going to start using it, which we know if that was true, none of us would have jobs. So it's the same thing where we can't just position it, we can't just create messaging and pricing and just assume we're going to launch it and that people are going to start using it. That even our customers are going to start using it, even if it's just like an addition to their product. We have to go ahead and make sure that we're doing things to actually drive that product adoption. So today I'm going to talk about kind of just thinking about your audience for new products, and then talking about some of the channels that we can do both on the earned or owned side of things, and then also on the paid side as well. So just putting extra last minute notes up there. So let's start with the audience. So I think a lot of the things we'll be doing will kind of hit a lot of different audiences, but one of the ones we want to think about is like, is this for active customers? Are they going to be the ones that are interested in this? Is this really good to bring back dormant or churned customers that we had? Is this for prospective customers? Is a new feature, reasons people haven't bought before they might be coming back for? And then likely it's a little bit of all. So there's probably like at High Five and video conferencing, there's enterprise companies who want something different from small businesses. And so there may be a feature that's really just for that enterprise company that they're kind of across all of these. And I'll talk when I'm going through the channels what's best for which channels or which audience the channels are best for, and kind of how to target them a little bit differently. But generally we'll want to kind of segment our message and things with that as well. Cool. So first one, hopefully I made these all in one, which I realized later is a very picture-friendly opportunity where it's all the information is in one slide. You don't have to take pictures of 4 different slides. So earned channels is generally your most effective. Sometimes other teams like to call these free, but we know that they're not free in the same way that SEO also isn't free, even though we like to call it that. So the first one here, and I put these kind of in what I think is a priority order as far as like both effectiveness and maybe bang for your time. On these. So the first one's in product. The pros to this is that it's a great way to reach your current and active customers. They're already in the product, so getting them to do something or to check out something new in the product is going to be a little bit easier than trying to bring somebody over when they aren't already in the product. And it generally has a higher conversion rate because of that. There's fewer clicks that they have to do. They're already engaged. Think about it in terms of if you're hit with an ad or an email when you're trying in the middle of doing work, you're less likely to stop what you're doing to go and check out this new feature, even if it is something that you're really interested in. So if we're able to get them when they're already sort of engaging with the product, that's going to be the best sort of route there. Cons, obviously unable to reach non-active customer audience. So basically anybody who maybe is churned or dormant, anybody who is less active as well. And then obviously prospective customers are not going to be seeing something that's in the product. It also usually requires engineering to get involved, unless you have sort of a like promo framework that you can plug into, which LinkedIn's trying to get a little bit of that for us. That generally requires engineering to code in this, whether it's a tooltip, it's an in-product promo, any of the like a notification, any of those sort of things. It will likely require some sort of engineering buy-in. And if you are trying to do that, a lot of times I've found that it can be difficult to get product and engineering people and design people to think about the fact that we need to be cross-promoting these things because they're hesitant to quote unquote like market to their customers or annoy the customers a little bit. So that tends to be a little bit of a struggle that you have to do that and kind of strike that balance with them on making sure that people actually know about the feature while trying to also not annoy or take away from the product experience. So pro tip here is actually best if you can get this into the product strategy early. So if you are lucky to be involved at the beginning stages of understanding beginning stages of putting together what the product strategy or the feature is going to look like, you can actually bake this into it, right? Is there some natural ways that we can do this? Is there some cross promotion that we can kind of build in and make sure that it's part of the timeline and that engineering and product are already thinking about it? There are some features that they may not, a lot of times they're not thinking about that. They're just kind of like, oh, we built this thing that the customers are just going to find, but it's hidden. They're never going to find it. So you need to be thinking about that for them. Email, obviously this is a really good one for your owned audiences that you already have their email list. You already have your email list of people who maybe filled out a form before, if you're B2B, who are customers, churned all of that. Definitely want to segment these audiences. What the message is going to be a little bit different for everybody, kind of where they are, and what maybe even we've talked a lot about in the last one, right? C-suite versus maybe your IT buyer. The message for them is going to be different. So depending on how large your list is, you may want to create different emails for different audiences. Obviously, if your total audience is 10,000 and you start getting into where you're segmenting to hundreds, that may not be the best use of your time. But if you have an audience list of 1 million, then you can probably segment those down and get a lot more higher open rates and click-through rates. So in the perfect world, you can reach the whole audience. On the cons, you can see that you don't actually reach the whole audience generally. And it's because of open rates and click rates. But in theory, you can at least get into their inbox and have the likelihood of that. And the other pro is that it's relatively fast. Even for a large organization like LinkedIn, it can be up in 2 weeks for us. And I know at my last company, High Five, it could have been 2 days maybe. So definitely faster than a lot of other things. The pro tip here, like I said, segmenting your audiences just increases your performance of the email. So do that as much as you can. Next is press. Pro here, obviously, large reach. You can reach audiences that you don't have, and you could get relatively large if you're getting, say, a TechCrunch article or something like that. It also can get you more niche audiences too. So I think generally I like to do a balance of both, try to get the TechCrunch article for that big press hit, and then also sort of the industry specific, what the buyer, especially if you're in IT or something, like what are they reading as well. It legitimizes what you're doing. It gives you something to put in your emails. It gives you something for your sales team to be talking about. It gives you hopefully some cool quotes to add to the site. All of that good stuff. The other thing it does is it drives excitement actually for the team. We recently had this at LinkedIn where we had some things that were launching, and it gets the engineering team really excited that the press is talking about something that they built. So it definitely drives excitement internally and externally. Cons is it can be time consuming. And it's something that you have to think about ahead of time. I think what we usually do is try to give, it depends on the size of the company. Honestly, at LinkedIn, we don't need to give press as much of a heads up because they have like a person dedicated to writing about LinkedIn. At High Five, we had to give 2 weeks so that we can try to get kind of that time built in and get on their roadmap a little bit more. And then, like I said, it can be not as targeted as well because you're not reaching people who are obviously have already expressed interest like all these other ones. The pro tip here is that PR is about building relationships. So before you're ready to go out and do that, you should be already trying to engage them, following them on Twitter, connecting with them maybe on LinkedIn, going to events where they're speaking, and just kind of getting that face time. They're humans on the other side, and they get sold to and pitched to all day long. Why do they want to work with you? Because either you have a really great story, you have a great brand, or you've built that relationship. If you can do all three, obviously that increases your likelihood. Last one here is social. And this one, easy, fast to get up and running, generally can obviously be slower in bigger organizations if you don't have that ability to, like, you can't just go talk to the social person. There's a process, there's lots of things going up, but generally it's easier and faster to get up and running. It can be very visual to help kind of tell the story and explain the feature a little bit more. Cons is it's generally also the lowest overall reach. Even for LinkedIn, we have a LinkedIn for Small Business page that has, I think, 250,000 followers, but that's still a smaller reach than all of these other ones for us as well. A pro tip here, use video. It's really helpful to tell your story, and definitely for how-to videos so that people can see how to use the feature and hopefully be more successful with it. So the one bonus that isn't on here that I realized I took off my B2B hat and had my B2C hat on, and then a lot of you are B2B, is kind of that front lines piece as well. So the sales team, customer success, and even for B2C, maybe it's support teams, making sure that they have all the talking points and that they can go and kind of share this as well, making sure that you tell them why it's important for them. For instance, maybe the new feature or the feature that you're wanting to push a little bit more, you're able to say, hey, people who have our Slack integration are more likely to stick around, and so you're going to get that renewal next year. So if you promote the Slack integration, then they're going to you end up making more money in the long run. Something along those lines is obviously helpful. One of the things that we are actually doing at LinkedIn is we had a feature that we launched to only premium members a few months ago, and there was a lot of excitement because that's when we had the big press hit, but it wasn't available to everybody. We had all these comments and posts, people asking for it, that they're excited about it. So we're having our support team go back and actually reply as LinkedIn to those comments and telling them, hey, this is available now for you to go and sign up for it. So you can do that. You can obviously go back. We at High Five we had the win-loss analysis earlier. You probably have that in your Salesforce where you can say, oh, we lost this because of this feature. We've now built this feature. Let's go reach out to those people and tell them, hey, we have this now. Would you like to come and see a demo, check it out, and maybe think about working with us again? So making sure that you're using those front lines to get out and talk as well. The reach is obviously less, but it's more targeted. It's a better sort of sale because of that one-to-one there. Cool. On the paid channel side, generally these require budget outside of headcount, but they do give you a larger reach. So the first one, display and social ads. These again are also kind of in what I would call a priority order. So display and social ads, they can be very targeted, and they are useful for both awareness and direct response campaigns. The cons here is that it can be time consuming to optimize the campaigns. One point there is if you have already created them and you've already optimized them, then being able to just kind of build off of that for the next run is good. And they do require, of course, an ad budget. That's kind of a con across all of these, is they require money. The pro tip, though, using cookies and email targeting is really helpful to reach your owned audiences and then to build lookalikes as well. So if you have a really good set of people who have already bought from you, you can, one, target them through these ads and make sure that they know about it, even if they aren't necessarily a daily or weekly user. But then you can Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter all have lookalike abilities so that you can actually not target that audience, but target people who look just like them to tell them about your features as well. And then SEM, obviously the big reason why we use SEM is we're getting people right when they are looking for your service. They have a need right then, and you can reach them right then. Cons here being that is not useful for new product categories. If nobody knows that a thing like you exists, they're not going to be looking for it, and so you're not going to have really any traffic there. On that point, the cost isn't going to be very high either because nobody else is likely bidding on those keywords. So you just won't get the volume, but it probably still makes sense for you to try it out if you do have even a small budget. The other piece is it can be expensive for competitive industries. Even video conferencing actually can be pretty expensive, like $20+ per click. But generally expensive industries are expensive because the value you get as well. We had the person from law earlier. Law is one of the ones that's also really expensive, but if you land a customer, you get a lot of revenue from that. So it kind of goes hand in hand, but if you don't have a large ad budget to test things out, that's just something to know that depending on your industry, you may need a larger test budget. One of the things here that I think specific for product marketing is if you're doing a new launch, you likely have new support pages, new product pages that haven't really been don't rank well yet. And so using SEM to help get that information up to the top could be helpful. For instance, LinkedIn, we just launched LinkedIn Open for Business. If you search that, you might find some press articles about it. You won't find our support pages or anything or blog posts and stuff from us. And so that's something that we haven't done, but I've thought about doing that to help make sure that people are finding the right information. And that's something that you can do, especially if you are a company where you don't have the great SEO. It's likely not going to be something that shows up very quickly for you. Industry events like this one or other ones can be really helpful. They give you generally a targeted audience and a captive audience. We've all been here for hours. We've been out there at the coffee multiple times and have gone by Crayon and Closed, and I can't remember the other one. But we've all seen them, at least seen their logo, probably gone by and talked to them, read their messaging. So that's why these sort of things are good. And then the cons there is that they can generally be time and money intensive, especially if you're going for a more traditional conference where you've got to buy the big booth and everything. That was my job on top of product marketing at High Five, and it was like, don't talk to me for the month beforehand, and we're going to spend a lot of money on this. But hopefully we'll get the return on the other side. Also, you can't control the location or the date here, obviously. And so that kind of goes into the pro tip, which is don't schedule product launches around events if you can help it. Everybody wants to do that. But we know that engineering is going to miss the deadline. And so that's going to be really difficult. It just makes your life harder. So try not to do it as much as you can. The other thing is everybody else is also doing the same thing. I don't really know why we all do it, because you're not, especially if you're not the big name, you're going to get kind of like lost in the press. So obviously this is kind of scheduling it around the event, but if you can do it, say a month to 2 weeks beforehand, that's probably actually the best time to do it. Or if it's going to come after, it's fine. So schedule your meetings with press and the analysts. Talk to them, show them mocks, but maybe just give them a sneak peek. And that way, if it doesn't work right, or they're only seeing pictures and not the actual thing, it's okay. And then you can give them a real demo later or what have you when it's actually working. I definitely had times where we had new things that we wanted to show that were working, but we had an engineer basically running the demo because it wasn't actually working, and they had to kind of pull strings in the back end. Luckily, it looked and all fine, but it wasn't really there yet. And I actually hate when marketing we are the deciding the product and engineering timelines instead of kind of reacting to that. One thing that worked really well for us on one of our launches is that we actually said, we got burned on some of the marketing, like choosing timelines. So we said, we're just going to wait until the product's ready. And then that's when we'll go out to press 2 weeks, and we'll give ourselves kind of 2 weeks, and then we'll launch it when we know everything is right, and we don't have to worry about kind of backtracking on press or our customers or anything and getting burned. So if you can do that, definitely do that instead of having it be the other way around. Last one, out of home. obviously has the widest possible reach here, can generate, in addition to the impressions and everything that you're going to get just from the advertising, it can generate additional buzz, especially if you do go kind of large enough and you've got an interesting creative and everything, can end up being on social and that sort of thing too. And then it increases excitement for your customers and also for your own employees. So that's one reason to do it, is it can be helpful for recruiting and team morale and all of that sort of stuff. And generally, if that's why you're doing it, you should be getting in the HR and other people kind of excited and maybe bought in and giving some of their budget to it. But that's just kind of an additional sort of piece there. Cons is that it can have long lead times, especially for larger campaigns. I meant to put it in here, but I forgot to. There are actually some companies that are allowing you to buy sort of last minute, like remnant inventory, like no more than a month or 2 weeks ahead of time. And those can be a little bit cheaper and they do move faster because they're used to that. The other thing is that it can be high cost. If you're trying to put one in, I think we heard earlier about all of the SaaS ones in the San Francisco area, those are generally a minimum of like 15 grand a month for one billboard. And so that's a pretty high budget, especially if you have like a small niche audience and you're trying to reach a broad audience. It's probably not the best use of your 15 grand. Especially because, in the pro tip, you need to see actual impact, you need to run multiple campaigns for multiple months. We did one, a high five, two billboards for a month. We didn't see really anything there. And so I definitely would not suggest it unless you have the ability to really invest in something like that. So I didn't put up my LinkedIn or email, but so I think I'm the only Clayton that works at LinkedIn. I'm definitely the only one in marketing, so you can search Clayton LinkedIn and you should find me. And then I'll go back to the beginning. Pritchard at linkedin.com is my email address if you have emails you want to send, but also obviously open to questions right now.
All the way there. Coming.
I can hear you, yes.
Yeah? Okay.
I was wondering if you could talk through how y'all balance earned channels versus paid channels with existing customers. That's something we struggle with. We use paid channels with customers, and what's your philosophy, and have you ever seen that?
Yeah, I think that's it, is what's the return? If you're going to be going after existing customers with paid, do you need to, basically, is one thing. Like, are you able to reach those customers through, whether it's a sales team or your email campaigns or in product? One thing that I've seen, and this actually is true for at least the team that I'm currently on LinkedIn, is that I think the product and eng team has kind of had marketing as a crutch. So a lot of the demand gen for the product that I worked on has been, the growth over the last year has been all from marketing, and they haven't really been thinking a lot about building in the demand gen in the product. So I would definitely try to go there first and put it on them before we start kind of spending money. But I would just say, like, look at what you're getting in return, and is that you'll have to do a little bit of, I think, testing to find out, is that additional revenue? But how much are you spending and how much do you get? I think you just still have to look at those sort of numbers. And I would say definitely should be secondary to the other ones. The other thing, though, is, like, if you're doing very targeted display advertising to just your customers, the costs should not be that high as long as your customers are actually interested in what you're promoting to them. So that's kind of the other piece there. The other thing that's helpful is you could do more account-based marketing. So you could say, these are the ones that we're going to show ads to, and then these are the ones that we're not going to, and kind of see how that sort of splits out. And you could go all the way down the funnel if people have done account-based with sales teams and mailing and all of that sort of stuff to kind of see how that works as well.
So they think the bars are like high, and it's a lot of effort, and it's, it takes takes away from other features in the product. How can you, do you have any tips to help bring them on board?
Yeah, I think one thing to think about is trying to make sure that they're very contextual. So for us, it's there's notifications that I'm working on right now. There's a relatively new feature in LinkedIn, only on mobile, but if you can post to share to your network that you're looking for a service provider. And some members aren't getting very many comments or messages from that. And so it's okay, could we notify people in their network to then go and comment? So we're actually giving them value at the same time as promoting that feature and kind of driving that adoption. So I think trying to think about it that way. Another way that you can think about it is okay, these people, maybe they dropped off from something that they were doing and we're going to go back and we're going to email them another way to get that same thing. So just trying to make sure that you're focused and telling them that you're focused on that. Another thing that I've seen is also laying it out as a test tends to generally work a little bit better. I actually had this recently. Our designer, which I think is relatively consistent with designers in general, is that feels as though it's her responsibility to stand for the member, even though I think it's marketing's responsibility. But when I said, well, let's just test it. And so you think it should be this way. We think it should be this way. Let's just test it and find out what happens. And so and then I think the last piece with that is making sure that when you are looking at the metrics, that we're not just looking at the demand driven, but also making sure the quality and the member experience or user experience is all still good. So for us, there's one of the features that our products I work on is ProFinder, which is for service marketplace. So there's one thing where obviously I can just drive more people filling out RFPs asking for a service, but I also need to look at when they do that, does it end up becoming a conversation? Does it end up becoming kind of a sale, or they end up getting the value there? Because we can drive this kind of vanity metric, honestly, easily, but if we're not getting sort of that lower kind of down the bottom of the funnel piece that actually shows not only did they do that thing, but they actually got the value, I think that's important. So I would say testing and making sure that you're focused on and showing that you're focused also on the user experience is really helpful. And just starting off kind of slow, finding things what's the thing that they should not say no to, because it's obviously good for the user and it's easy and it's very targeted. I think that's one thing, is making sure that it's contextual and targeted to the right people that actually want it, and showing them that you're not just trying to go to everybody to just get the numbers up. Any other questions?
Okay. Thank you.